it play and call it work.
Hello there, Wargamers. Luka here from MiniWarGaming to introduce you to a new show that we will be running out of the studios. This show focuses on modern, relevant narrative releases such as Pyschic Awakening. And this will be starting off with Phoenix Rising, which will be a two-part episode series coming out on Thursdays. Not every Thursday, but sprinkled throughout the future Thursdays in between other shows. And it's two parts because who would have thought that Luka here would have a hard time condensing information into shorter, concise videos. Certainly not me. So I'm spearheading the whole show. I will be doing the recorded narrative. I'll be reading the books and letting you know what's going on. This show is essentially trying to target people who haven't had a chance to catch up on the narrative, or they've always been interested and maybe they don't have a whole lot of time to listen to something longer or go out and buy the book and read it themselves. Now, this is my first attempt at recording anything in this style, so any constructive criticism or feedback will be greatly appreciated. I, of course, will be reading all the comments and will take pretty much anything into consideration, especially if you like the series and you want it to go forward. I would like to make it as best as I possibly can for anyone interested in watching it. Now to the show. Now, Phoenix Rising is the first installment in Pyschic Awakening, and it heavily focuses on the Eldari and the many factions that make up that proud race. This episode will be focusing on the lore of the Eldari, their effect on the galaxy, and the forming of the Inari as you know it now. For a lot of you, this may be a refresher, but Phoenix Rising focuses heavily on this at first, so it might be important in the grand scheme of things throughout the course of the release of this narrative series. Now, to give you some quick insight into what the Eldari actually are as a race, they are unfortunately near extinction. They're ancient by all means, and they're a fractured race at that. And three main factions, they have the Asuryani, which are the craft world Eldar, you have the Drukhari, and you have the Harlequins. And in a way, the Eldari kind of caused a lot of the issues going on in the universe of Warhammer 40k to this day. You know that whole Cicatrix Maledictum thing, that rift, literally tearing the galaxy in half? Well, that stems from the Eye of Terra, and that was caused by the Eldari way back in the day from a combination of very questionable decisions on their part. Now to the actual narrative of Phoenix Rising. This story mainly focuses on Yvraine, the High Priestess and spiritual leader of the Inari, which is a religious sect of the Eldari that tend to believe in a more controversial philosophy on the afterlife, which is something along the lines of, reclaiming the crone worlds of Morai Hag, which is, by the way, in the middle of the Eye of Terror. Or failing that, if the entire Eldari race were to perish, they would then rise again, like the Phoenix, in their former immortal glory. Don't know if I'd throw my weight in behind that one. If you're to ask me, it sounds like a pretty big gamble, and I wouldn't blame any Eldari leadership that also thought the same way. Which, by the way, there are a lot of once you start listening to this story. One more thing I'd like to note would be the Cicatrix Maledictum, which is the imperial name for the rift in the galaxy. The Eldari, on the other hand, call it the Thadian. Now, this has impacted the Eldari in both negative and positive ways, but I guess I should emphasize that it's mostly negative, like 99.9% negative, and there has been a very minor positive effect from this event. Now, the Eldari are a very psychic-sensitive race, minus the Drukhari, of course, as they lost that a long time ago. Regardless, this is a very psychic-focused event, and it has affected the Eldari accordingly. They suffer feelings of despair, guilt, like just pure anger, nightmares, all of these awful things. Now, all of these negative emotions have built up and have caused the Eldari to lash out in a way, go to unnecessary wars, starting fights with old Imperial allies, or old allies even amongst themselves, looking for a fight any which way they can, going against their whole preservist nature as a culture. Now, the physical effects of the event are completely different but equally as devastating. First and foremost, the craft worlds themselves are slowly losing contact with one another, making it even harder for them to support each other in dire times of need. Already 2 world ships have been completely lost, the spirit seers sensing their souls slowly dwindling away every hour until they cease to exist altogether. That alone is an unimaginable loss to all the craft world Eldari. Now, a second major effect, physical effect of the Thadian, is the fact that even the webway portals themselves, or traversing the webway for the Eldari craft world ships, is much more difficult than it used to be before. These events here have frayed and damaged the webways and made them wholly unreliable. The last notable threat of the Deathadian, I'd say, is the fact that it is just so much easier for demonic incursions to literally spring out from anywhere these days. That is specifically a big threat for the Eldari, and the forces of the Chaos God Slaanesh are always a hindrance to them, and boy do they come up a lot. But hey, like I said, not all things are bad. Through the study of the path, the craft world Eldari have been able to focus the etheric energy spilling out of the Deathadian into their own skills, right? If they were a powerful psyker, maybe they're a little bit better of a psyker. If they were already a skilled warrior, well, they can focus a little bit more on that and maybe be a little bit better with the blade, or be a little bit faster, or just be a little bit more aware of your surroundings. That's some sort of a positive, right? Now, these next few events predate Gathering Storms, but it gives you a little bit more insight into the Eldari philosophy and why they are the way they are. Now, a while ago, the birth of Slaanesh completely devastated or destroyed completely the Eldari pantheon, and because of that, the Eldari lost their immortality. Whenever one of them died, Slaanesh would consume their soul. They also knew Slaanesh as she who thirsts because, well, she's always hungry. Now, with that is where the big split began between the race. You had the Drukhari, the Harlequins, and the Assyriani, the craft world Eldar, and they all had different ways of dealing with death. The craft world Eldar, they had these spirit stones that they would trap their souls in when they would die, and they would last in this type of limbo. Instead of actually passing on to the afterlife where she who thirsts would eat them alive, they would kind of live out the rest of their life in this soul. Or they have this device in their craft worlds, in their big old ships called infinity circuits, where they would store Eldari souls as well. Whereas Drukhari sought to make others suffer in their stead, through torture, kidnapping, all that great stuff. Now, this was a deal with the devil, a bargain that simply postponed the inevitable. Never really worked out for them all that well. Now, that third controversial train of thought that I had mentioned earlier involved all Eldari life dying, which is true. And by that, we mean going into the infinity circuits at the heart of these hive worlds, and the combined spirits of all Eldari life, all of their souls, would form this Gestalt consciousness, which would awaken and empower their god of the dead, which is named or known as Inyad, which would then have the power at that point to defeat Slaanesh and kind of right the wrong that they caused upon the galaxy many moons ago. And of course, resurrecting the Eldari race in their immortal form once again, and glory to them. But again, pretty big gamble. Now enters our boy Eldrad Ulthuan, Farseer of Craftworld Uthway, with a very ambitious plan that sets all of this in motion. Eldrad's very ambitious plan starts with the help of the Mask of the Midnight Sorrow, collecting the crystallized long dead bodies of Farseers from each craft world. They then take these bodies to Koharia, a moon of extreme psychic power, where Eldrad plans on a grand ritual using the moon's very sand as a sort of mini spirit stone, and the bodies as a hyperspatial link. The next step is a basic one. All Eldrad is attempting to do is summon every Eldari spirit that has passed from every single craft world infinity circuit into these little miniature spirit stones on the moon, and this, he is hoping, will prematurely awaken the god of the dead, the Inyad. Why wait when you can just do super big time ambitious rituals that'll probably never fail? Now enters Watch Captain Artemis of the Death Watch, here to do that exact same thing I just mentioned. Now, Eldrad fails to convince Watchmaster Artemis to allow him to continue this ritual, big surprise there, or fails to convince the Watchmaster to listen to him in any way, shape, or form, and while having to defend himself from death, Eldrad loses focus on the ritual, and therefore the entire ritual is a wash, and it fails horribly. Well, not horribly, it does succeed in a very minor way. The god of the dead wasn't awoken, though his consciousness did stir a wee bit, and a fragment was formed. This fragment would then later hunt down a certain Corsair queen in the Drukhari city of Camorra, and then Possessor, and thus we have Yvraine. Now we enter the rise of the Ynnari, led by, again, the spiritual leader and high priestess, the newly formed Yvraine. Word starts to spread amidst all the craft worlds, amidst the Drukhari, amidst the Harlequins of the rise of the Ynnari. Some cling onto this belief right away without any prophecies, without any word from Yvraine, and without encountering the Ynnari in any way, shape, or form, whereas others are much more skeptical, to say the least. Now, wherever Yvraine went herself with her Ynnari followers, she had much success, but there was a good amount of struggles on the way. First point, the craft world Beltan. Now, there was a good healthy split on the craft world of Beltan when Yvraine arrived. Half of them accepted her with open arms, the other half condemned her visit. Now, I don't blame them, because when she arrived, there was an immediate demonic incursion. Like I had mentioned earlier, it's much easier for the forces of chaos to appear wherever they find most convenient, and at this point they found the middle of the craft world the most convenient. So Beltan, of course, all united, even though there was a little bit of infighting beforehand. Did I note that it was kind of getting close to the point of civil war? That's how bad it was between the split. Now they all worked together to fight off this demonic incursion. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough, and the demons of Slaanesh were able to make their way to the Infinity Circuit, which again holds all the souls of the past Eldari, and in a way powers these massive hive ships, or world ships, and the demons of Slaanesh were able to destroy it. Though, instead of the souls being devoured by She Who Thirsts, they coalesced into an avatar, the god of the dead, the Ennead. The Incarn was born, and with the assistance of this avatar, Yvraine, and the remaining forces of Beltan, they were able to fight off the rest of this demonic incursion. Now, two major events stem from this conflict, the first being major support for the Ynnari, after showing that they themselves have the support from the god of the dead, and the second being that Slaanesh is not happy. Now, those souls were owed to Slaanesh by right. Instead, they went to the Ennead and caused the creation of his avatar, the Incarn, and Slaanesh just can't have this going on. This god of the dead is anathema to Slaanesh. It goes against everything Slaanesh stands for, so Slaanesh has to turn to an old resource. Enter Shalaxi Hellbane, disgraced 600 years prior, monarch of the hunt, one of the more prolific keepers of secrets. Shalaxi Hellbane is tasked with hunting down Yvraine, killing her, and putting an end to this ridiculous Ynnari movement. Now, Shalaxi Hellbane is more than elated with this task. It's what they were meant to do, and again, anything to earn favor with Slaanesh. Shalaxi then goes on to collect a formidable force, or at least a force good enough to hunt down Yvraine, take her head, stop this Ynnari movement. Many join Shalaxi's cause, including the deadly symbiote Celesk. With that demonic host gathered, Shalaxi Hellbane then enters the webway, and the hunt for Yvraine is on. Meanwhile, Yvraine is doing very much the same thing. She's going from craft world to craft world, speaking to Eldari everywhere, and spreading the good word of the Ynnari cause, and in a way, gathering her own army. Tune in to episode 2 to find out how this story continues. That's it for part 1, folks. Hopefully you were able to absorb some of that information. Hopefully it was concise and clear enough for you. There's a lot in this first book I found. I've read the later editions, or the later releases of Pyschic Awakening, and there wasn't as much. They put a lot into Phoenix Rising. At least I think they did, personally. Anyways, any feedback will be greatly appreciated. What you'd like to see me do more of, or if you like it, just say you like it. It's not going to be crazy technical, at least not right now. It could evolve from here. It could go into other lore or into the Horus Heresy, or it could literally branch out to anywhere. But for now, I'm going to stick with relevant modern stuff. That way, any new releases come out, you guys can kind of get an idea of what's going on. Ironically, the first few things going on in Pyschic Awakening don't really have anything to do with modern 40k. It's like the events during the tearing of the galaxy and all that stuff. And you'll see as more of these episodes come out now, I'll cover more of that. As always, hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, feedback please, greatly appreciated, and see you guys next time. Happy wargaming. And for our Vault members, don't forget to click the link below to watch the next episode of Path to Glory, Black Legion vs. Blood Angels with Dave and Phil. If you're not a Vault member, you can get a free 7-day trial and watch the game today.